Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into Paranormal Now. I want to share with you quickly that a documentary film my wife and I created years ago called Born Equal, a documentary about love, is now available on Amazon Prime for free. So I hope you'll go check that out. It's a film that makes the argument for LGBTQ rights, for marriage equality, and so much more. And it follows the day in the life of a lesbian Christian couple, Renee and Kelly, and their family, and juxtaposes that with perspectives from different religions, religious authorities, researchers, doctors, including atheists, Hindu, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and so much more. And it's a really fascinating look at history and mythology as well, and how through all these different viewpoints, we come to this place of acceptance and love. So I hope you'll go check the film out. And if you do enjoy it, please give it a good rating and write a positive review. I really appreciate that. It was our first film. And so this is actually a prelude to the next upcoming documentary that I'll be working on. And that is called Half Light. Now, this documentary is all in paranormal. And what I'm excited about is that the lessons we've learned from the first film will apply to the second film. And Born Equal is a film that we absolutely love and are proud of, and we hope to share with you. And perhaps, just perhaps, it'll make a little bit of a difference in the world. Thank you. However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls of the planet and beyond, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portholes and tantalizing turnoffs. Joining me tonight is Caroline Cory, director and producer for the documentary Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. I'm very excited about this. We love diving into the metaphysical on Paranormal Now, and it's not so meta, is it? That's what this documentary is all about. In the last 30 minutes, call-in lines will be open. The Paranormal Radio app line is 855-472-5483. So please share your thoughts and experiences with us later on and also during the show. You can join us in the YouTube and Facebook live stream and comment there, and we will field your messages and hopefully get to them as we go. But of course, we do want to hear from you. So in the last 30 minutes, those lines will be open. We'll give you the cue for the Paranormal Radio app line to call in and ask Caroline your questions. All right, so I have some fun news for everybody. It just so happens that Paranormal Now lands on Halloween night this year, which is a Saturday night. That's very exciting. Normally, I would, be worried that people are out partying, but I know this year that's not going to be happening quite as much. So we're going to try to do a little bit of a party on Paranormal Now for you. So on Halloween night, we want you to call in, and we need at least 7 callers. Once we have those 7 callers, then all of those who called in will be entered to win free merchandise, including a t-shirt and a cap, and I'll get you more images for those as we get closer to that show. So really what I want to do that night is hang out with you and share spooky stories for the entire evening. So that's the plan. The only guest for that night is actually my father, coming on as a historian for the first 30 minutes to discuss the history of Halloween and what it all means, and our perception of what Halloween is through the lens of modern times, and how that has maybe skewed, what it actually meant to those, 200, 300, 400 plus years ago and so forth. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation. And as usual, KGRAradio.com chat room is available. So if you are not able to watch on YouTube or Facebook, you can go to KGRAradio.com and join the chat there. But I have noticed lately that many people from that chat are jumping over to the YouTube and Facebook page, and I appreciate that because I really like the new platform that we have, because I can see all of your different comments from different platforms coming in to one place. So it makes it easier for me to take care of that. Before, it was much more difficult trying to keep an eye on all the different web pages. All right, so we're going to bring on Caroline Cory in just a moment. But like I said, on Halloween night, don't forget about that. Join us for that Paranormal Now party, and think in advance. What was your spookiest experience, if you've had one? I remember not my own experience. Well, I'll tell you an experience that I had when we were kids, and yes, it could be our imagination. We did light as a feather, stiff as a board. For those of you who may not be familiar with that, is basically what you do is you take your pinkies, you do a circle around someone who's lying flat on the floor, and you put your pinkies under there, and you chant light as a feather, stiff as a board as often, as quickly as you can, right? Light as a feather, stiff as a board. And in theory, the intention of what you're doing will create an energetic lift so that you're not using physical force to do it. Well, this one time when we tried this, I kid you not, and I wasn't the only one that experienced it. It was some of these other kids around here, around the person lying down. Objects in the room looked like they started to glow. Now, I don't know. I can't say if it was a figment of our imagination or not, but collectively, we had this experience. And then once we all recognized that we had this experience, we freaked out and ran out of the room. So the experiment was not complete. However, our guest Caroline Cory will be able to talk experiments in regard to what the human being is capable of. That in fact, we are not bound by the confines of our five senses and the physical reality that we think we know so well. Caroline Cory is a director and producer known for Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible, E.T. Contact, They Are Here, and I Am the Universe 2014. Caroline has had her own extensive experience in the field of consciousness studies and extrasensory perception, and in the film Superhuman. It takes the viewers on an extraordinary journey to achieve tangible and measurable proof of the seemingly miraculous phenomena. She is also the founder and executive director of Omnium Universe. Caroline Cory, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Hey, Alan. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy you're here. Every once in a while, we need to hear content that's inspiring and uplifting. And I know that's very much a part of not just the documentary, but your work at Omnium Universe. So before we talk about what our superpowers are, can you tell us how you got involved in this sort of metaphysical work?
Yeah. So for me, it started when I was very young. I was 5 years old, and I had an experience where I came in contact with these beings. They just kind of showed up, and we started to communicate telepathically. And I realized that I could see the subtle energy. I could literally see them, hear them, sense them. I could see how the codes, the telepathic codes were transferring from their consciousness to mine. And I thought it was normal. I didn't think it was anything special because it felt really good. It wasn't scary. It wasn't anything like that. So I kept it to myself because I thought, oh, everybody does that. It's no big deal. But then later, as I grew up, I realized like I could hear people's thoughts. I could see what was on the other side of the wall, things like that. And so with time, I realized that, wait, not everybody does that. And so I wanted to know how. I wanted to understand what my brain did to get there, So that got me in the field of consciousness. So how does consciousness work? What is the nature of reality? How is my consciousness different than your consciousness, different than an extraterrestrial consciousness? So that's how I got into this whole field of understanding the mechanics. So for 15 years, I developed methodologies for, meditation, expanding consciousness, remote viewing, energy, this whole thing.
But a lot has happened to you. Did at any point you think you're just like, oh my gosh, I must be crazy. This can't be real.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So what happens, I think this is a typical reaction. So when you see something, the first reaction is like, wait, did I just make this up? Like, what if I just projected, So
Right.
that the first reaction, doubt, And so it's funny because when I got to college, I wanted to study psychology, to kind of rule out all the anomalies that I could have.
Isn't that typical though, that psychologists are usually the ones with problems? Isn't that
Exactly.
yeah.
I thought there must be something wrong with me. So it's like, maybe it's schizophrenia or maybe it's this. So I went to study it, to make sure. And of course, by the time I got to graduate school, I was like, this is baby stuff. These people have no clue how you are just like so beyond that. And I realized this is real. This is real. And what happens is you get validation. Like if I see something I didn't know anything about and the next day it happens, that's validation.
Mm-hmm.
If I hear something I didn't know anything about, then it happens, that's validation. So when you get validation after validation after validation, you're like, okay, this is real. This is serious stuff.
It is serious. And when you're having this contact with, I guess, an ET, what was that like? What were you experiencing?
Well, I had many experiences. So the very first experience when I was 5 is very, very different than when I came in contact with like a being from Sirius, for example, or a gray. I mean, that was like completely different. So with that very first experience, and I'm glad that's what it was because it was so beautiful. It was so loving. So like, it was like home, and that's why it felt so comfortable and familiar. That's why it didn't turn me off. I didn't go like, I don't want that. So that kept me open. But then when I met other different types of extraterrestrial, it was very, very different. I mean, if you have specific, I could give you so many examples of, how they are and how they felt,
Well, I wonder, because people do report these experiences, and some of those reports are rather different. The interpretation, the experience, and listening to what your experience was, or at least interpretation thereof, is it possible that your natural state or substrate of who you are, your makeup, could that affect the interpretation of the experience itself? Because for some, it could be a very scary, traumatic thing, but for you, it seems like you sort of internalized it in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, that's why I wanted to figure out what was my brain doing, like what was my body doing to get there. And I realized that my vibration was very, very high. I was in a state of joy. I was like vibrating in this place of love and joy. So there was one thing, but also I noticed, because I could see the subtle energy, it's like my brain channels were pointing into a specific direction. It's almost like I was bypassing what I call the planetary grid. It's like the human construct. It was going straight into what I call source. It's like the hub of the universe where you tap into all of the information. So because of that, it was a specific alignment that allowed me to be open, but also to be protected, and also to attract beings and experiences that were matching my vibration, and my alignment. So that's how it works. If you're in a state of fear and confusion, you're going to attract those guys as well.
So when you say brain channel, is that an official term, or is that just your term?
Well, like I said, I developed methodologies, to refer to different things, but literally we have 3 channels, and I'm not talking about the EEG. These are brain waves. I'm talking about channels where the brain is actually a geometric. It's like a web. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's like three webs, 3 matrices all together. And then each one connects you to a specific point in the universe. And so one point is the planetary grid. That's how we are all human. Like we all can see the same visual spectrum. We all see the same primary colors. Mm-hmm. We all hear the same range because we're all we're plugged into that spectrum. But we also have another channel that connects us to higher frequencies. Okay. And it's a point in the universe. It's a point in the galaxy and another point in the universe. And so, I mean, it's just part of the methodology I've developed and trained people to have those experiences and to consciously align yourself that way so that you can maintain this balance.
Well, and you said that there's sort of a barrier of sorts because of the Earth. Is that because the Earth has like its own frequency? Is that what you mean? Like, I think it's 7 point something hertz of a measured frequency. Is that it? Or is there something else? Is there some other energy field?
No, you're just talking about the Earth's frequency. I'm talking about the planetary grid. So the entire spectrum that we're all tapped into. So we're within a visual spectrum. We can only see certain colors. We don't see ultraviolet. We don't see infrared, even though it exists, but we don't see it and we don't hear beyond a certain range. Sure. So that's what I mean. So it's a range of frequencies that we exist within. Okay. So that's our main channel. But then another one allows us to go beyond and tap into the intelligence of the universe. So that's what I mean by channels.
Did your contact experiences with ETs help facilitate this skill set, or is this something separate that you developed?
Well, I think honestly, because I started having these experiences when I was very, very young, I think I came in already remembering some of it because it was so natural to me. I could just see, the construct of time, space. I could see things when I was very, very young. So I think a lot of it was already part of my natural makeup. And I think that this contact experience when I was 5 with those beings continued to feed more information as needed. It's like more knowledge about this, more knowledge about that. This is how you do it. You do this way. This is how you communicate telepathically. This is the part of the brain that does this. So it was a combination of both. And it's a specific group of beings. I wouldn't call them ETs.
So what are they?
Well, they're light beings, but they're more like universal beings from source. They're not material beings. Because to me, when we say extraterrestrials, you think right away like the Greys or the,
Yeah.
No.
So is this an ultra terrestrial? Is that what people?
If you want to call it that way, it's universal. Okay. They come from very, very far away in the universe, and they don't take on a human body. They cannot take on a human body because their consciousness is so massive. It's just so big. Like it doesn't fit within a framework, like a material framework. So, but they communicate through consciousness, and so that's how we were able to communicate, and they kept feeding me all this information.
So you had no ever any physical contact?
No, it is physical. It is it is physical, but it's not, they're not humanoid, let's say. They don't have like a head and arms, but you can see like a shape, but it's all light.
Sounds like angels.
Not quite.
Well, are people misinterpreting angels, do you think, or?
Absolutely. And I think that's another reason why I think people, if they're interested in the type of being that there are in the universe, people think like ETs is just like Greys and reptilians and Pleiadians or whatever. But there's like so many more types. And what about the angels and the archangels? And there's all kinds of types of beings. And I talk about this in my previous film. And, I show different images and I explain how different contact happens differently. And sometimes we see even, I'm sure you heard about the orbs. Sometimes we see orbs and people think, is this a spaceship? Is this it? Sometimes it is a spaceship, but sometimes it's a being, because it doesn't necessarily take on, a humanoid shape necessarily. So it's a lot more bigger and more complex than we think.
Have you seen the movie Interstellar?
Yes.
I love that film, and I think it's very underrated. But I love this idea that he is reaching back through time, and those beings, these ultra beings, actually are a future us, and it really plays with time in that sense. Could that be what these things are?
Sometimes, for example, when we do remote viewing and we travel to Jupiter, one time we did that, and the beings that were there were humans from the future. It means us in the future. So there's that. But those other types of beings, the light beings that I'm talking about, are just different. It's just different category altogether.
Okay, so the way I describe myself is a spiritual agnostic and part-time atheist.
Okay.
And I I apply that to everything in a sense, to the metaphysics, to ufology. There's always that side of me that is skeptical, and I just can't get away from that. And I'm good with that. I think it's healthy. For instance, someone might say, if you believe in a religion, right, you're crazy. It's just all mythology. And yet society, by and large, supports this idea of these creatures that we read about in the Bible, a dragon, these Nephilim. And there's so many fantastic things that occur there that, could be, could have come out of someone's imagination. And so, when I hear things like extraterrestrials, there's that part of me that's going, like, how can this possibly be? Yeah, I mean, if you were their representative, how would you say to someone, look, this is why it's real?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I like that you're a skeptic. I don't know if you're, I think it's interesting that you're in this field, you're in this field.
Yeah, no, I'm not exactly like a skeptic in the pure sense. I just have that strain there.
No, I like it. I like it.
Which is to say, like, I think that I'm okay believing in something at the same time, not being able to say that it is real for a fact. That's kind of where I land. Yeah.
So here's the thing. First of all, how can it not be true that there are other types of beings? I mean, come on, like, just look around. There's like billions and billions and billions of stars and planets, and just look on the earth, thousands and millions of species and breeds of animals, of trees, of plants, and, the variety of creation, or whatever you want to call it. You're not a creationist, but you know what I mean,
right? Sure.
Of existence. Okay. And then in terms of intelligent life, whoever did that, whoever, invented this whole thing, so in terms of intelligent life, like, they created the human and said, okay, that's it. I'm done. They're perfect. My job's done.
Oh no.
Come on. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even make logical sense,
right.
That the only, with all the brilliance of the universe, that the humans would be the only one. So that's kind of like logic.
Yeah.
Right? But then when you have an experience, first of all, like I was saying, for me in the beginning, when something happens, the first thing you think, wait, did that just happen? Did I make this up? Like, what if I'm going nuts? So that's the first reaction that you have. But then things happen, physiological changes in your body. Other things happen in your consciousness. Like, for example, you would remember things, you would know things that you didn't know beforehand. You would, are you there? Oh yeah. It's like, yeah. So, so certain things point to the fact that you didn't make it up, because there's leftovers. Sometimes you download something that, like, you're not a scientist and all of a sudden you have this formula or something, or you heal something, you've been struggling with a cancer or something and it's gone. So there are certain things that happen to you where you cannot deny that something happened,
Mm-hmm.
So, but of course, if you're not the one having the experience and you're just listening to it, it's okay to be skeptical. But I'm telling you, the second you have one experience, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. Well, I mean, I did have a UFO sighting when I was younger, which obviously had a serious impact on the rest of my life. And, my wife and I have had psychic connections that are just confounding, usually related to food choices. But it's really odd. Like, our brains will go into sync when we are both craving the same type of food, and we'll just say something within the same moment or something like that. So phenomenon happens. My wife, I trust very much her instinct. She gets a good sense of who people are, a situation, and that information that she is getting is not necessarily just her logical mind. It's like she's tapping into something else. Right? And I think that any honest atheist is also an agnostic, because there is no way that any one of us know all the answers to the universe, how this all started, where it's going. I think that's very presumptuous of us to think that we know. My belief, and I emphasize the word belief, not fact, is the universe is like a larger consciousness. So I refer to it as universe with a capital U. But my opinion on that might change. I'm not set in stone in that regard. What about yourself?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what I believe in at this point. What I believe in. I'm not here to convince anybody of my belief or convert, for sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to share. Because what happens is when you have these experiences, and like I said, and validation and leftover physiological changes or whatever, then you start to see common denominators. You start to understand a little bit more of the story. Mm-hmm. You understand the mechanism of your consciousness interacting with the fabric of time-space, which is how you're picking up you and your wife are entangled and connected. Right. And that's why, all the synchronicities happen. You start to understand, that picture because you've lived it through this experience and this experience. So that's why after a while, I have a pretty clear idea of what I believe in, for sure.
All right. And before we go to the break, is there hope for humanity, Caroline?
Hope for what? Because it depends of what they want to create. Is it hope for peace, or is it hope to open up to other intelligent life? What is it that you are hoping for?
I don't know, but we'll ask you more about that when we come back on the other side of this break. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. My guest is Caroline Cory. I'll put her link to her websites in the chat, so please go check that out and check out the film Superhuman. It was a really great documentary. Alan B. Smith will be right back on the flip side.
On and on and again, the signs keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
Lost in a bad way, I've gotta let you go. You're supposed to be so close to me, how mostly it goes to me, yeah. And if you chose to see the most in me, you'd hopefully get close to me, yeah.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. Joining me tonight is Caroline Cory. Taking us out of the break was music by Septembrio. That's Septembrio with a Y.com. If you like their music, please go check them out. You hear them every week in the bumper breaks. Also, a friendly reminder, the Telepath newsletter. Please sign up, subscribe for that. Just go to kgrradio.com, and we give you the best in alternative, metaphysical, paranormal, and ufological news. And you will keep up with the beat and what's going on in the community. And of course, later in the show, in the last 30 minutes, please join us. The listener open lines, 855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA live. You can call in, ask Caroline or myself a question. And if you've had a supernatural experience that you can relate to in regard to the discussion we're having tonight, please call in and share that as well. And of course, everybody knows that I am a fan of the UFO Monument Park. So if you do happen to come up in the Northeast, obviously everybody can use a little boost in tourism. If you're going to come up here, please go check out the Sheffield, Massachusetts Park, UFO Monument Park. It's really beautiful. And it's just nice to have a positive representation of a very real UFO occurrence. And I think that you all can appreciate the history there. And, it's one of those cases where it's getting traction, the Berkshire's UFO event of 1969. But I don't think that it gets the amount of attention, respect, and research that it should. But I think that the Netflix series, oh my gosh, I'm slipping my mind, Unsolved Mysteries, is doing it a good service. So hopefully more people will become aware of that as well. All right, so I'm going to bring Caroline Cory back on with us. And Caroline, what is your take on what humanity can be?
Anything it wants to be. In fact, that's the theme of the movie, if I can move into it real quick, because it leads me to your question. So I just want to kind of back up a little bit where I left off.
Sure.
Having all these experiences and working with hundreds of people around the world. Also, abduction, regression, this whole gamut of experiences, like I said, in the field of what just happened, how did it work, all of that. Eventually, I started working with scientists. And we started doing experiments. So with one of the scientists, we would work, for example, with DNA. So we would try to influence the DNA, just like an extraterrestrial would do. I mean, you say
that so casually. Like an extraterrestrial would do.
Like when they show up and try to mess with us, what happens really. But so I would try to focus my intention and then try to change the pH or the electrical conductivity in DNA, water, etc. Then we started working with telekinesis, moving objects, and we started working with affecting an electrical device, a computer, and so on and so forth. Now, just for those who are listening and who don't know me, when we work with scientists, I mean, it's the real deal. It's protocols. It's not like, oh, we just put a thing and it works and that's it. No. I mean, we set up, baselines. We study the measurement over a period of time. We know exactly when to do the experiment, so on and so forth. So when we would do these experiments, it was basically to measure the effect of consciousness on a physical object or on a biological system, on water or DNA. And we would have changes. We would have, when I would focus on the water, it would just jump, the pH would change or the electrical conductivity would change exactly at that time, so on and so forth. And it's repeatable. That's when it's scientific. So doing this over a period of time with different scientists and having over and over measurable results of consciousness, visible or invisible. Well, consciousness is invisible, technically, having a measurable physical effect. I was like, wait, this is This is real. I mean, this is not this concept out there like, oh, think positive, affirmations, blah, 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 like, raise your vibration, you feel better, or it will heal you. This is proof. Then when you think a certain way, you get a measurement. If you think a different way, you get this other measurement. So that's the reason why over a period of time working with them in labs, I decided to make the movie. I said, we need to show people this is no longer theory. Mm-hmm. This is not, because we've been hearing about these things, it's, the mind affect this and stress level. And so that's why in the film, I chose specific experiments that people would relate to, like remote viewing or telekinesis or affecting the water, the pH water. And that's how the movie came about. But again, all this to which you saw the movie, but all this to come to the conclusion that if your mind, if you think, and it has a definite, measurable physical effect on the physical world, it means you can alter your body. You're made of water. If you can do it on a glass of water, you can do it on your body.
Is this an experiment that people can do from home? Can they measure pH themselves?
Yes. I'll tell you about that. So, but just to answer your first question. So if you can do this to water, then you can do it to your body. If you can do it to a piece of paper, then you can do it to the physical world. All this, together, you come to the conclusion in the film, especially with the blindfolds. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. We come to the conclusion that humans are capable of anything they choose to do because their consciousness is more powerful than they think. They just don't know how to use it. So that's how, to answer your question, what is hope and what are they capable of doing? They can do anything if they understand how it works.
But do you think that there is a, demiurge pushing the soul or whatever in a particular direction, or are we just sort of 100% random and we're just trying to find our way? Is there
I love that question. I don't know if you meant it the way I'm hearing it, but it's very profound, I think. Do you think are you saying there's like a spontaneous urge that's kind of pushing us in one direction? Or, yeah, I love that. It's actually quite a profound and complex question. It's not so simple because I feel that on a most organic, fundamental level, all humans have this innate urge to connect back with source, which is the center, which is the hub, the intelligence of the universe. And what that does, that starts to pull you in the direction of coherence, of resonance, of higher vibration, of thriving, because the universe thrives. The universe evolves. It's never static. So you start to feel those things and want to do certain things in your life that support that. And I feel that is the real natural fundamental urge that we all have. So that's that. However, I think there are many, many influences, extraterrestrial and otherwise, from humans as well, that are confusing us, that have been around for the past 200,000 years, mixed in within our Earth plane, mixed within our DNA patterns through manipulation, through genetic engineering, through all kinds of crazy stuff, which makes it harder for the human to follow that natural pull, to its evolution, its thriving.
No, but if we are all interconnected, including these beings, wouldn't that natural pull be somehow related to them as well? Wouldn't they share in that experience? And then why would they be working against it?
I love that. Your questions are good. Yeah. So everybody, they are also intelligent beings. They are also having this pull. However, you also have something called free will. And sometimes when you are having an experience, especially on a planet that's so remote from the center universe, from the central universe, such as Earth, there are other planets close by. It's almost like that pull is a little bit, softer, if you will. What happens is that you're kind of the juvenile species. You're like the baby of the universe. And so as you grow up, just like a human baby, you want to try stuff out. You're like, this is not good for you, but I'm going to do it anyway, So you start to experiment. You start to say, wait, I have the ability to control an electronic device. What if I have the ability to control somebody else's consciousness? Can I get you to do something I want to do? Which may be good, could come in handy. You can make your husband do the laundry for you, whatever. No, but seriously, going back to, this is serious. So as beings started to evolve, they realized the power of their consciousness, and through experimentation, wanting to try different things, because the human species is a juvenile species, they started to try certain experiments on the human consciousness. What if we tell them that they're blocked off from the rest of the universe and we are their gods? What would happen? What if you would put a baby in a room since it's born, and never tell it that there's a whole universe out there? How would it grow up to be? That's an experiment. So they started doing stuff like that 200,000 years ago. And before you know it, they were like, that's interesting. This little baby thinks I'm God. I'm its God. I kind of like that. Let me feed it a little bit more. Let me give it a little bit more. Let me do this, Before you know it, this experiment becomes out of control, and it turns into what we're experiencing today. A planet built on selfishness, greed, power, confusion, competitiveness, which is what we're observing right now.
So all of that, essentially the root of all of those evils, you're saying could be from some other beings that sort of seeded that in our consciousness and way of thinking and behaving, because they created the construct. Yes.
And don't forget, so if they do this, now here's this baby that grows up this way, and other babies and other babies. Now, some of the human species, grows up thinking that way and thinking that that's the way to do it. And some of humans become this way. That's the reason why it starts out as an extraterrestrial species that introduced that original experimentation, but eventually it morphs into a much bigger story with other species and humans as well.
In Superhuman, you don't really touch on any of this. Was there a reason for that? Do you think it would distract people from the message of that film? Or because it seems that, whenever you talk about this stuff, it all connects somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's not at all the theme of Superhuman.
Right, exactly.
So everything I talk about in my books. For those who are interested, especially the book, The Divine Plan, Now and Beyond 2250, if they're interested. But I also talk about the different species in my previous film, but I don't get into that story. So I would say it's more in my book and my courses. But Superhuman, you can find the book on this website. But Superhuman, that was not at all the focus. The focus was more, what can we do now, especially with what's happening in the world, where we are on this timeline with all the chaos, all the mess. How do we take charge our power? And you do that by understanding who you are, what your consciousness is and what it can do. So that was the focus of Superhuman, demonstrating in real time on camera the effect of consciousness on water, on a physical object, on, different experiments to come to that conclusion.
Now, in Superhuman, there is this one scene where it looks like they're moving, rotating. What was that, piece of paper, or it was like a gum wrap or something? Yeah. Can you explain what was going on there, especially for the listeners who don't have any visual aid?
Yeah, we could show also some clips, but people can see some of it in the trailer. So if you go to superhumanfilm.com, you can play the trailer there.
Okay, great.
But basically we demonstrated how telekinesis works. Telekinesis is the ability to move a physical object without physical contact. So what we did, we start out with a piece of paper. Eventually you can move other stuff. But so with a piece of paper that is cut like in a square type thing, and then you lay it on a needle and, and a base, obviously. And then you basically, through your consciousness, first of all, it's still for a long time. Then with your intention, you kind of intend it to rotate and it starts to turn. So first you do it, just sitting on a desk, but then you gradually make it more and more difficult. So then we put a glass around it and then, try to get it to move. And then we put 2 glasses around it. And then you try to get it to move. And then you try to do it remotely. So you're not even in the room. There's nothing there. There's no air. There's no temperature. There's nothing affecting it. And then it still moves when you want it to move. And then I did it in a movie, totally long distance. And it was in a Faraday cage. Faraday cage means there's no electromagnetism.
Right.
There's no air molecule. I mean, maybe 2 air molecules, but not enough, And so that's to demonstrate that it's not even the electromagnetism of my body because I did it 1,000 miles away.
Have people sent videos to you of them trying these experiments?
Yes. So since I got this one, and in fact, I'm very curious. So if you do that, if anybody's listening, please send me those videos because I'm always looking for stuff like that.
And maybe they can tag you on Twitter, right? What's your Twitter address?
I'm not sure. I think it's Caroline Cory of Omnium Universe.
That's the name. But it is Omnium _universe. I think. Yeah.
I think if they just Google me like on Twitter, I mean, if they search in Twitter, they'll find me.
It'll pop up. But it would be great if people could tag, and then you could see, all these different videos that people are trying. Because I'm tempted. So here's my problem though.
Yeah.
It's that I cannot tell you. How many times I have tried to make something come to my hand. I've tried the Jedi way, which is not to force it, but to open your mind and just kind of, invite it, and it still doesn't work. And I've been trying for a good 25 years. Now, why can't I do that? Why are we able to have these much more subtle effects on things rather than, larger objects?
Well, I mean, you have to start very small. You can't just right away start moving rocks and pyramids eventually, but a class online, which again is on superhumanfilm.com, and go to the workshops. And I just taught a class on how to do it. I don't know how other people teach it. I know how I teach it. And in one of the things that we talk about is not just the meditation and quieting your mind and letting go, but also addressing the stuff that comes up for you. And so it's, there's belief systems, there's nervousness stuff. So I kind of walk you through that process. And also I teach you how to communicate with the object. And so, because you have to consider you are going to move a physical object, maybe it doesn't want to move. In fact, that the very, very first time I tried to move an object, it was interesting because the reaction was very, very different than when I worked with water, like DNA and water. When I would work with DNA and water, I would think it and it would just it would happen like instantaneously. With the people, with the piece of paper, when I would try to move it, it would like kind of respond to me. It would be like, well, I don't want to do that. It was like as if it had an ego, you know, it was saying, well, I'm not ready, you know, just like chill. I heard you, just back off and I'll do it myself. It was hilarious.
Sounds like my cat.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like in the technique that I teach, I kind of I train you how to pick up this information. And once you get into to a place of perfect resonance with the object, this is when it happens. So I can only speak about my technique. So anyway.
Do you think that in time you'll be able to get to, you know, larger objects, even like a pen or a pencil or something like that?
Yeah, I can already do pens and pencils and things like that. But, you know, I explained a lot in that class, you know, about, you know, the uncertainty, the level of uncertainty. So you want to start with something that has a high level of uncertainty. For example, a piece of paper that I don't have it here, but a piece of paper that is very, very light. That is floating on a needle that's very pointy, you know what I mean? So it has a lot of uncertainty. It's very easy to just increase the air molecules under the paper for it to start to rotate, or increase the temperature and then start to rotate. I mean, I say that, but don't forget, it's underneath a glass. It's underneath two glass, you know? So, but you start with something very easy, just to kind of get a sense without the glass. You start to kind of, you know, try to imagine you're changing the temperature around it. You're increasing air molecules in this direction, so it would push it this way. You know what I mean? So you start this way, and then eventually you kind of build it up to something more and more difficult.
Is that what you're thinking in your mind? You're thinking I'm increasing the energy, or you're thinking I'm moving the molecules?
Yeah, so that's another very interesting question, because different people like to do it differently. So, for example, when we were doing the pH in water, I tried different things, and I realized that I like to focus on the hydrogen molecules, because when you increase the hydrogen molecules, the pH goes down, and vice versa. So, to me, that was the most effective. But when I taught it in a class, people were like, I have a hard time, like hydrogen molecule. What if I don't know how to do that? It was easier for them to just focus on the number, the pH, you know, like 7.2, and just kind of focus it on going to 7.3 or whatever. So it depends on you. So you have to kind of try different things and figure out the one that works the most for you.
Is it ultimately just the intention that matters?
Absolutely. That's the intention, but it is subject to your belief, your state of mind, your, you know, I mean, all kinds of stuff. You know, we do breathing, we do meditation, we do all kinds of preparation, including shifting your belief system.
What is central to doing that? Because I can imagine, like meditation, there are things that are important, like breathing, you know, being still, clearing your mind. So even though people might have different means of putting their intention out there, what is a tenet that everybody must ascribe to? Is it sitting still? Is it clearing your mind?
The common denominator, for sure, there's a few things. It's not just one thing. But the most important thing, I would say, quieting your mind. Because the mind chatter is energy also. It's not just distracting, because you're thinking, is this going to work? I don't know what I'm doing. Right. So it's distracting, but it's also energy and frequency. And so it's the quieting of the mind so that you can focus on the target and make it move the way you want it to make. Just to give you an idea, like when we were filming, okay? So we invited this girl to do the telekinesis experiment. Okay. So we invited Rachel, who's an actress. She's never, ever done anything like this before, right? And speaking of quieting your mind. So we teach her, we put her, you know, she comes to the set, and we told her, this is how it works. We're going to start moving this piece of paper. And in 2 hours, we teach her the principle of how it works. And don't forget, we have 6 cameras, we have lighting, we have equipment. I mean, we have people watching, we have the PA running to get lunch. I mean, it's not the most conducive, to quieting your mind and concentrating, especially doing something like for the first time. So we had to kind of go to that place, of perfect quiet. And I would like pick up on everybody's thoughts. And I would tell the PA, the 2 PAs, I would say, could you please go outside and go get us lunch now, even though it wasn't the time, but just go. And then I would tell the camera guy and the sound guys to make sure, everything is in focus, everything's working, And then as soon as we start rolling, I want you to start texting your friends and answering emails, because I wanted them to direct their attention somewhere else, because their thoughts were like bombarding us with, is this going to work? Is this going is she going to do it? It was confusion and doubt.
Confusion and doubt. And so that detracted from the efforts that you're putting in there. And that reminds me of, I think it was Dr. Putnam in the book, The Field, by Lynn McTaggart, where, you could kind of like this, different intentions, interrupting each other, if you will. Or sometimes you can ask people to do a certain intention, and collectively something else might come out, but it'll still work. It's just not what you expected. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. We have to get to this second and last break. We'll be back with Caroline Cory on the other side. And we'll be talking about how much more you can achieve in this lifetime, right here and right now. And what does that mean? Does it change the paradigm of your belief system, and our society's belief system? We'll be right back.
Intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store. Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
I try to capture how I feel and tell you the whole truth, but there's so much to be said, so I just leave you small clues. But now I'm bearing my soul, and my soul loves you. Tell me last things, tell me last things, tell me last things, tell me last things.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, and joining me tonight is Caroline Cory, the producer of Superhuman. If you want to find out more about Superhuman, well, actually, you can go to her Omnium Universe, and I believe that links to all of your other sites, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can find out about the actual work that...
I don't think it links to the movie, so I think people should go to superhumanfilm.com for the movie.
Okay, perfect. And also, we were talking earlier about this other film that I now have to check out called Among Us.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that?
Well, it's really, that one is just strictly about the contact experience, you know, with all kinds of extraterrestrials or any type of non-physical entity. So whether it's you download something, or you get abducted on a ship, or you just have an encounter in a different way, like interdimensionally or something like that. So that whole range different types of contacts, different types of beings.
And actually, you made me think. So, for everyone listening, when you call in, if you call in Halloween night to Paranormal Now for our spooky lines, if you want to include ET contact, I think that is acceptable, because for me, that would be extraordinarily freaky. Although Caroline has clearly handled that very well. Now, do you, were you always, do you think you were born with a sort of positive outlook and demeanor? Because, whenever I see you do a Facebook stream or, any of your work so far that I've been exposed to, do you have a sort of balanced and positive energy? Is that just who you are, or did you develop that?
I think it's both. I think I already came in like kind of a happy person, but I also, my understanding of how things work, and all the tools that I have to help me shift, keep me in that state. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why my work and my research and working with so many people from around the world, seeing how, if they just know how to pinpoint what is it in their subconscious mind that's keeping them stuck there and just shift it. It's very fast and very easy. And so I think it's a combination of both. And I would much rather be happy and fun.
Oh, me too. But like earlier today, I was just having one of those moods where I was just kind of not sad, just kind of, plain, even. I wasn't, in my more upbeat self. And I don't know where it came from. It just kind of was there. Then I had an amazing meal that was happened to be cooked by my wife tonight, and a good strong cup of coffee. And now I'm feeling good. And I think that's also a part about learning to know yourself, and it's kind of like hacking your own mind in a way.
Yes.
I have experience with addiction and that sort of thing, so I understand the challenges, and people can get in a funk. And it's like, how do you do that? You mentioned like that turning on a switch. How do you find that? Because it's so easy to kind of get caught in a loop.
I'm so glad you asked these questions, because not only you have your own stuff, but you're also sensitive to the collective. I have those moments, not because I have a ton of experience and a ton of tools that you become immune. That's not true. In fact, it's almost worse, because you are tapped into everything and you feel everything. So I have those moments, Alan, where I wake up and I'm like in such a deep, kind of depression. And I know it's not me. And that's where I trained myself to discern. Plus, there's no reason for it. So, and I could feel this deep, deep, deep sadness that something just happened or something is going to happen. And I realize it's the collective. I'm tapping into something. And sure enough, usually on that day, there's like the fires in California or, crazy stuff like that. And so when you do this work, the first thing is to try to discern, like, what is the root cause? Is it me? Is it chemical? Sometimes it's like what you said. Sometimes it's just chemical, and you just need a little bit of a cup of coffee or something, or just turn on some fun music or, so with you having the meal and, and the happy place with your wife. So it was chemistry and energy that shifted you. Sometimes it's as simple as that, but sometimes it's much deeper.
Right.
And so if you train yourself to really just go to the subconscious mind, again, we're not giving a whole lecture here or lesson, but just by tapping into the subconscious, you can go to your heart. This is a simple exercise. Okay. Go to your heart and pretend it's a different person. Like it's not attached to you.
Interesting. Okay.
And as if you were like asking it the question, like as if it was a different person outside of you. And if you say, what is the root cause of my depression, my sadness right this moment? You will start to feel, because it's like a different person, it will tell you things. You will see images. You will feel certain things. It will give you the root cause. And if it's something collective, like you will feel the world, or you will feel like you will see something on the news in your mind, obviously, then you can focus on that, the root cause, and intend it to shift. You say, I ask and intend for that feeling of being trapped in the fire or blah, 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 whatever it is, to be dissolved, to be deleted, to be purged from every cell in my body, from my conscious, my subconscious, my cellular memory, and you breathe it out. And so that takes, I'm telling you, and like if you learn how to do this, you shift in seconds.
What's the challenge then? Because oftentimes, we read self-help books or, take hear advice and we try to take it. But why do people either give up or get frustrated or just slip and do something else? What is that? What's going on there?
I mean, it's a combination of things. First of all, sometimes when you are on your own and trying to figure things out, it's harder than having somebody. There's that. And I don't want to be critical of other people's methodology. I don't know how everybody works, but a lot of the time they're just band-aids. Like, for example, affirmation. Okay, so people say, affirmation. Just say positive thing. I'm healthy, even though you're sick. I'm healthy. I'm good. I'm happy, blah, 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 blah. So it's good. It's good because you are putting out an energy, but you are saying something, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm blah, blah, blah. But your subconscious mind is saying, I feel horrible and I'm not good enough and I'm a failure.
Exactly.
So at the same time, you are saying what you want or what you think the affirmation, and your subconscious mind is still talking, is canceling it out. So that's the reason why affirmation alone don't work. You have to go to the subconscious mind, figure out what it is saying, get that out, and then you say, I'm healthy and I'm happy.
That's really the most challenging part, is that our subconscious has an enormous amount of power over us. In recovery, people say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's because the subconscious, it's like it won't let you let go. Yeah. And it's really difficult. So this does tie into the work that you're doing, that the healing work ties into the film Superhuman, because, if you're able to, capture, your own intention and guide reality, as it were, towards what you would like to see manifest, then you're on your way to a better life. I guess that's ultimately it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why I keep saying, Superhuman, it is so timely. It's so timely because more than ever before, right now, we need tools and a reminder that what's going to get us out of this mess is us. You cannot control, if a vaccine is going to be forced on you or whatever. I mean, you can always, do protests and stuff like that. But I'm saying in general, everybody's creating a reality, and we're also, people are creating a reality for us, the collective. So how do you stay sane within this insanity is by shifting your perception, by shifting your vibration. And then when you are in that bubble of energy, you can create the outcome that you want. You can still feel good. You can still use the tools of remote viewing, discernment, the mind over matter to, for example, project yourself. For example, I have to go on a trip and then this whole COVID thing and blah, 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 So I can do remote viewing before I go to see what's happening there. What do I need to worry about? How to take care of myself, how to make sure I'm safe. Not just mask. Trust me, even if you're wearing mask, even if everybody's wearing masks, you can still get sick. I mean, come on, you can get sick from something else. So what I'm saying is you can use these tools to always bring it back to you to decide what is the experience you want to have within this larger consciousness. Mm-hmm. Another quick example. Again, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just sharing what I did and what I believe in. So I had to do a film shoot, and they said, well, the network wants you to do a COVID test because everybody, like all the crew, like everybody coming together, it's mandatory. And I said, but again, you guys like, so I said, but I don't want to take a COVID test because I don't want stuff shoved in my nose. I don't want putting anything in my nose. I don't want anybody putting stuff in my mouth. I don't want, the invasive thing. And they said, well, that's the rule. And that's so I was like, wait, I want to do the gig. And at the same time, I don't want those limitations. So I did my work, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I have to create something that will allow me to do the test, but it is not invasive. So I find this lab. I'm in the middle of nowhere in this little town. And I found this very credible. I mean, it's a big lab. And they did a thing where you just spit. You spit in a cup. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, here's my spit. Nothing. You know what I mean? My personally, I did not want stuff put inside me. I don't like spitting. So my point is, and it turns out that this test is not given anywhere. Like, I mean, it is obviously where I did, but it's rare. And I found it literally 20 minutes from my house.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing it has to do with either convenience or it's a little bit more expensive. Maybe I don't know why. But that I would guess that's why this test is not as prolific.
Exactly. And so my point is, I'm not saying what other people should do. My personal experience is I don't want my free will is I don't want people putting stuff in me. So how do I still do the job? So I still created something. I attracted something which was very rare. I mean, more rare, but I still did it. So you can do stuff like that, like figure out ways to maneuver, and still have the experience that you want within those larger limitations and things like that. And all of this has to do, I did remote viewing. I did some telekinesis, but on situations, not on objects, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that's how I located the lab.
From remote viewing?
Yeah.
You didn't Google? Doesn't it seem easier to Google though?
It is, of course, but actually I didn't know what I was looking for.
Ah, good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't know. Actually, I was asking around, but I also I find things like this all the time, In fact, I mean, a long time ago, I worked a little bit for the police because my friend told me can you help find missing children? So a long time ago, I did something like that where I don't know where the kid, I have no reference point. And so you have to kind of locate where the thing is. And so you can do that all the time. You're thinking of moving. You're thinking of selling your house. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do within, this crazy reality that can help you.
All right. And speaking about this crazy reality, if you want to share your crazy reality stories or ask Caroline Cory your question, call 855-472-5483. That's the Paranormal Radio app line. We're going to open that up in 15 minutes, so stand by. And Bill Skywatcher, our producer, will pull you on the air after you call. Again, that number is 855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA Live. So, Caroline, do you have any new projects coming up that are either a spin-off of this or something completely different?
Yeah, it's kind of Superhuman 2.
Okay.
I have a few projects actually, a series, but also like the continuation of this film. But I'm waiting a little bit for this one to really take off. We still have to do a lot of marketing and ask people to help spread the word and stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you take it to film festivals initially?
Yeah. So I already won. I think I won four awards for this film. And then at one point the COVID thing hit. So all the festival, like a lot of them got canceled or changed or postponed. So, but I still managed to get 4 in.
No, but that's fantastic. I mean, and it seems to be, it still has momentum, the film, right? Now, besides Amazon and other places where you can rent it, can people buy like Blu-rays? Are you doing that, or is it just like 100% digital?
No, they can buy a DVD from the website.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Superhumanfilm.com, and just go to product or DVD. I mean, you'll see it at the bottom of the page.
Right. What's your superhuman fantasy? Something that you think you can do and would like to do?
Well, I'm working. I'm working on mastering, because I've explored and experimented with, levitation, teleportation, but it's not so simple because of the electromagnetism and all the anomalies in the time space where we are. There are a lot of gaps and problems. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do it in a safe way. Like if it's very simple, then it's easy. But more than that, it becomes complicated because of all the challenges on the earth.
Do you have family that appreciates what you do, or are they skeptical of what you do?
I have a sister that she's totally into it, which is awesome. Yeah. But my parents, they're dead. I mean, like my, and I don't think they get it. Like, I don't think they really know or what I do, or how bad it is, or how crazy it is,
That's helpful. Yeah. Because I asked, because so many of us, you have friends, family, or many try to keep it out of work, especially because people just might think you're nuts talking about this stuff. And obviously we don't here on Paranormal Now, and that's why we do this. So do you think, and this is totally off subject, do you think that there are physical ETs, in our reality, physical like us, that are visiting Earth? These UFOs that are caught on camera, people that see abduction experiences. Are those physical beings that are grays and reptilians, whatever?
1000%. Yes. And because, like I said, I've had my direct personal experience, ones that kind of manifested in my bedroom, and we had the exchange and I could see them, and they're 100% physical. And then others that were literally like not interdimensional, like literally like physical, like you. I saw a couple of tall whites in Las Vegas. That was a long time ago. So that's why I know for a fact that there are a few who are literally living, in here, and others that are interdimensional. So they come in and they go. They come in and they go through the pathway, the interdimensional walls, the veil.
In the veil, when we are dealing with intention, remote viewing, are we piercing some veil? Is that what we're doing?
Well, it's a little bit more technical than that. It's and there's different viewing, but when you're doing remote viewing, you're working with coherence, you're working with resonance, and you're working with the fabric of time space, the way it is organized. There's a pattern in the time space where it's kind of like, imagine like a network of wormholes, of black holes.
Okay.
And so it's a network, and then there's like black holes, but they're perfectly coherent with each other. And so, and they're all over. They're above us to about 7,000 miles above the Earth, and then into the ground. So they're like, it's wrapping around. It's like the mind internet, if you will.
Okay.
But what happens what happens is that those wormholes, those black holes, are everywhere. And so if I am here and I tap into the closest wormhole, which is right above me right here, and I can project my consciousness there, my thought, you can receive it instantaneously at the black hole that is right above you, and you retrieve it that way. So because it's kind of like everything is entangled. So the energy, the particles that are here can be transferred to the particles that is somewhere else instantaneously. This is called entanglement, but it's also resonance. Okay. So, yeah. So I mean, I'm kind of simplifying and kind of summarizing, but that's the principle. So,
but you know what I like about your film is, and you alluded to this earlier, that the field was a big deal when that book came out, and it exposed for the rest of us who were unaware of the scientific research that was going into, random event generating experiments. But what you've done here is you've certainly built on that with real time experiments.
Yep.
And people are actually looking at them on camera. Most skeptics are going to say, well, this documentary is edited, made to look like these people are actually doing something that is beyond human, but really they're just fooling you. What's your response to that?
Yeah, the skeptic, I could be levitating in front of you right now. If you're skeptic, you're going to say, "Oh, there's a trick somewhere." So I mean, if you're a skeptic and you want to stay skeptic, there's nothing I can do to convince you. So that's that. And I'm not worried about those people because they're just missing out or whatever. But I think so. Of course, there's editing. We're not going to show. We filmed the telekinesis one scene. Just for you to know, like just to get, and also if you did notice, this film is very high production value. So, it takes us 2-3 hours to set up one shot. And then, this is not like an iPhone, right. We're running around one guy with a camera. This is a Hollywood production.
That's me and my documentaries.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean that. I'm just saying.
That's all right.
Yeah, but my point is so this is a professional product, and also we have to follow. I'm a storyteller. I have to, make sure it's logically coherent from point A to point B. So of course we're going to edit it to follow that storyline. And of course we're going to edit it so you're not spending 6 hours watching the person, staring at the thing.
Right.
So it's edited in that way, of course. But we have no reason whatsoever to be cheating. I mean, then it's like we're totally working against our own principle. And we have no reason to do that. We showed things as they are, as we did them, on camera. So, and all the reaction, everything was totally real.
Mm-hmm. But there were actors involved. How did that happen?
Yeah, so what happened was when I started planning for the film, first of all, I said, I don't want to be the only one doing this because people will say, oh, well, she can do it, nobody else. So I wanted to bring different people to actually go through the experiment, also to show that anybody can do this. So that's why, so then I thought, well, let's mix it up a little bit. If we're going to invite people, let's invite random folks and maybe some people relate to. Maybe this will help us at least attract the people who, are on the fence or something, and at least be entertained, by the idea this is my favorite actor or something who's taking part in the experiment.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all came about. I was nervous about the fact, would some people think, oh, they're actors, they're faking, but it was very real. It was all truthful, and I didn't care. It was like, this is working. I'm just going to let it work this way.
Well, it was interesting to see Corey Feldman. I would have thought that he would have been the opposite of a skeptic, but he was more skeptical, and wasn't all in on accepting, what you were proposing to him. Now, when someone is approaching one of these techniques, can it still work even if you don't believe?
It depends. For example, if you're the one who has to move the piece of paper, like you were saying earlier, and you don't believe that, that's going to be difficult, for you to make that happen.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing something like, for example, the radio experiment we did, which is a phenomenon, it's actually a scientific phenomenon, that shows that the voice could transfer through electromagnetic field. Even if you're not a believer, that's the experiment we did with Cory. Even you're not a believer, it's still going to work because this has to do with physical laws. Right.
And that was really interesting because essentially it proved that an EVP can work. And that was so fascinating about it to me, because it was this crossover between this, what one might consider more metaphysical with, ghost hunting. And it really connects those two worlds and shows that you can capture voices that are not being, or vibrations that are not being created in our auditory world. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was really moving when I saw that. Because, a lot of people have their doubts about EVPs. And I think one of the most common explanations is that you're really just picking up some other radio frequency.
Yeah.
But in this experiment, that's not what was happening at all.
No, exactly. So, we demonstrated that just briefly for people who didn't see the film yet, but just very briefly. Basically, we recorded we did a recording on one tape recorder, and then it's played on another tape recorder that wasn't plugged in. So we demonstrated that, the recording transferred from point A to point B without any physical contact, without any cables or anything like that.
Okay.
Only through the magnetic field. So that's, I think this was very, very fun. And Cory's reaction was hilarious. So, yeah.
And is this what you do every day? Is this part of your life where you have experiments with people, you train, or what's your day-to-day life like?
So before the film, that's what I did, like almost full time. I was doing experiments to know like what I should be doing with the film and stuff. But since the film, I've really been, helping spread the word and promote it, but also teaching, because I knew people were going to ask, especially with the blindfold. We didn't get to that. But so I had lined up already classes for remote viewing, telekinesis, meditation specific for that, spoon bending, and blindfold. And so that's what I've been doing. I'm just finishing those classes and they're online. And that's what I'm doing right now. And eventually we will just move into the next production. But that's my day to day, is the training right now.
I'm going to zoom you in so people can better see the blindfold.
So you guys, this is completely dark. I mean, when you put this on, you see absolutely nothing. And so we had kids in the film, kids and adults from all over the world who would wear this mask and do all kinds of crazy. They could read, they could play ping pong, they could ride a bike. And so, of course, scientifically, we wanted to make sure they weren't cheating. So we put a device to measure the amount of light that was inside the mask. Mm-hmm. It was zero light photon. And so now we just finished 2 online series with kids. After the second session, Alan, the kids were reading and doing puzzles with the mask, completely blindfolded. I did a adults class this morning. Most people, like I want to say like 98% of the class, pretty much, they were seeing colors. They were identifying colors in front, behind, their back. Insane. One girl, she was like reading literally, like she could see the letters, 100% accurate. It's crazy, but it works.
Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines now. So if you want to call in, Bill Skywatcher will field your call and we'll get you on the air. That number is 85-KGRA live or 855-472-5483. I can understand seeing colors maybe, but to be blindfolded and to literally be reading from a book, that's very clear and distinct. And so when these children did this, what are they describing? Are they just seeing the book as a book, or are they seeing letters? What's that like?
Yeah, so there's different methodologies out there, and each methodology teaches you to do it differently. So some methodology teaches you to kind of gradually imagine that there is light in the mask, and it's like gradually you start to see light kind of build up inside the mask, even though there is no light. Mm-hmm. And then you start to see like the light, the mask becomes less and less opaque, like a very dirty glass window. And then so when they're reading, they start to see like an out of focus, like letters a little bit out of focus. And then they train themselves to kind of put it in focus, and gradually it becomes very, very clear.
Okay.
And so other techniques are slightly different. It's based on vibration, or it's based on the idea that you are everywhere. You can see the information outside your body because your consciousness doesn't stop at your body. And so it's a form of remote viewing, but it's not. You basically imagine that there's no boundary. And so you are just reading and you see clearly.
Are we individual souls, or are we all one soul and we're just branches of the same tree?
Ooh, it's both. So we're individual souls, individual units of consciousness, as Tom Campbell calls it, within a larger stream of consciousness. So it's both. Love your questions.
Oh. Well, that's what we do. We have to question here because we're just curious minds, and we want to know as much as we can, before that passing comes for all of us. And I love asking the questions, and I love getting answers. But for me, half the fun is kind of not knowing.
Yeah.
And are you a scary movie type person? Do you like that sort of darker, shadowy side of life as well?
Actually, I don't. I'm not attracted to horror films at all.
Okay.
I don't find that funny or interesting, actually. Even sci-fi, like when it starts to get kind of, the drooly alien or, I get turned off. I'm more into interstellar type stuff,
Right.
So that's more.
So no aliens popping out of your stomach, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that's not my style.
What about Star Wars? Are you a Star Wars fan at all?
On and off. Like some of them I didn't get into at all. It was also like all kinds of like fighting. I'm more like I'm kind of like happy, kind of more. I'm more into comedies and stuff like that. Yeah.
What is the quantum physics refers to that really small scale, that there's waves, the smallest form, right? Is there anything even beyond that? There's the known galaxy and universe as much as we can see, and is that it, or are there more levels that we'll one day discover?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, to me, going back to consciousness, I think consciousness is fundamental, meaning it is at the base of everything. So if you can imagine that consciousness is the form of energy, is a form of existence that manifests in different form, in an infinite number of things. And so this fundamental substance can manifest as intelligent life, and all kinds of intelligent life, material, non-material, light, etc. It can also manifest as a planet or a star or a galaxy. It can manifest as just form different forces, different types of energies. And so because everything is born from this fundamental substance, at the core of all of existence, there is oneness. There's that unification,
Yes, right.
there's that connection. But when it comes out as an intelligent being here and as a planet there, it looks like it's separate, but at the base is that fundamental connection. So when you say, is there more to discover? It's really the potential of this fundamental substance, because if you understand this principle, then it could continuously and infinitely continue to manifest in, infinite forms.
Right. I have a question from Rodrigo. Does Caroline enjoy the quest for answers to the UFO mystery, or does she think we'll get disclosure?
Yeah, I've been in this field of, ufology for a little while now, and I've seen them myself. So I've had also a direct experience of this. And there's actually quite a lot of confusion, I think. We think the government knows everything. So my perspective is, I don't think the government knows everything. There's some people in the government that know everything, but it's only like 3 people maybe. And then there's and then there's a whole range of people who worked in programs who know something like this exists, but they don't know everything. And then there's the rest of the people who don't believe it's even real. And all of this within the government. And that's the problem, because if we expect a disclosure statement to come from a government when the government itself is not all in agreement, I think it won't happen. And even if those people end up saying something, which is happening now, I mean, we saw that with the Tic Tac video, whatever, to the Stars Academy, and my friend's movie, James Fox, just came out, The Phenomenon. So it's like, so even though we have those bits and pieces coming out, I don't know if this is like a real, like full-on disclosure, because there's a whole part of the government that doesn't really know or may deny it if it gets to national security. That's my perception. So my perspective. But I think the disclosure comes from us. I think the disclosure is all the experiencers, all the people who have seen a UFO, to just keep talking about it and not worry about, and all the whistleblowers, obviously, and not worry about how it's perceived. Just keep talking about it. Keep putting it out there. It's real. It is real. If it happened to you, it is real. And that's how I see the real disclosure happen.
Right. I think we have a tongue-in-cheek request from Rodrigo. Move Alan's headphones from his ears, Caroline. Do people do that to you? Do they say, hey, do something with your mind now. Prove it to me? Yeah,
sometimes. Long time ago, one person in the crowd said, well, what's in my pocket right now, or something like that. And so, but just for you to know, like if I were to do something like this, for example, let's say you have keys in your pocket. So I may see keys, but what happens is, the way I see, when I perceive a subtle energy, I would see the shape, and I would see the texture, like I would see the shape of a key, and I would see like metal. So it's not like necessarily that I see the key, but I see the shape and the metal that tells me it's a key. Does that make sense? Yeah, right. And so it's kind of like it's because your brain is operating at a different range. But I think this is very kind of like you're saying, just kind of a little game, childish game. I would rather focus on people's, it's much more helpful when people have a problem and they're blocked somewhere, they're struggling with something for a long time. And I help them, identify the root cause right there. That's a lot more helpful than trying to tell you what's in your pocket, which you already know.
Well, I have to say, I still think David Blaine has something else going on. Yeah. I really do. And I think that's what makes him so great. Yeah. Is because I remember seeing a video of him. It must have been the early 2000s. And they were filming it. and he was, I think, maybe Eagles or Giants Stadium somewhere. And it was just him and like a football player. I can't remember who. And he levitated like just like a little bit. And the camera actually came down and went around him. And I recorded it and I played it back over and over. And he doesn't do that trick anymore. I mean, I haven't seen him do it in forever. And I'm thinking maybe he realizes I better be careful with how much I show that I can do. Otherwise, someone's going to snatch me up and do experiments.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think there's something else going on there.
All right. So we have a caller, Ron. You are on the line.
Hi, Ellen. Welcome back. I missed you last week.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Caroline, and I've seen you on some other shows, and I enjoy what you teach and how you teach it. And so, thank you very much. And I had a question for you, and I have this question for a lot of people in ufology and paranormal and in your kind of work. How does this mix with your religious background, and what was your religious background?
I actually grew up in a Catholic, I went to Catholic school, and but I never kind of practiced, like, I wasn't forced to go to church on Sunday. I mean, I did a couple times or something. So it wasn't really forced on me. But, maybe just to share with you my experience going back to the 5-year-old experience. So when I was 5 years old, actually what really happened, it was Christmas Eve. And I was looking around. So my parents were like, doing the Christmas tree and the gifts and, like Christmas stuff. And I remember so clearly looking around and thinking, what does this have to do with Jesus? What does this have to do? Like, and why? Yeah, I was 5 years old, right? And then they were like fighting, like, put the gifts here, or what's, I don't know about the food and the dinner. I mean, like human stuff. And I kept looking at them and saying, isn't Christmas about love? Isn't Jesus about love? I kept saying, these humans are telling me to love Jesus, but they don't know how to love each other. As I was having these thoughts about Christmas and the Jesus, and I could feel the lack of love in among these humans, this is when the beings showed up. And they were the ultimate love energy. It was like, oh my God, this is what it's like to really feel love. It was pure, unconditional love coming out of these beings. And it was such a contrast between the tree and the Christmas tree and the Jesus and the gifts and blah, 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 and that energy. And I think that stayed in my mind for the longest time, that true spiritual connection and true divine beings and our true divine self is a direct experience. It's a direct energy that we all have and we can access. It has nothing to do with the human stuff. Does that kind of...
I like that.
Yeah, that kind of stayed with me the rest of my life. So then, of course, I grew up. I had to go to Catholic school. I was sitting in catechism, like, okay, whatever.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure, great question.
Your work and keep up the good work. And I agree with you that we have to keep talking about it and get the message out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, Ellen. And great show and great guest. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Ron. I really appreciate the call as always. Do we need an intermediary to connect with the divine?
That's what I just said. We don't.
We don't.
No.
So not even a symbol, not a person. Because before you were talking about how, what happens if you're born into this world and there's no teachings, there's no one else to influence you. Does that person, do you think that they would find their way to the divine without anything?
Well, you also asked me about this poll. It's a natural, it's innate within us. That pull takes us back, gravitates us naturally towards that source. To me, whether it's divinity or spirituality, God, whatever you want to call it, it takes you back to your true divine essence prior to your incarnation in this natural way. So I feel like but having said that, I think it's still helpful to have teachers. I mean, I'm a teacher and facilitators, but the teaching should be, you have a direct contact to the source. It shouldn't be worship me. You need me to get there. That is the problem. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have teachers and facilitators. Right. The way we should teach is that.
Well, what if you say, not you, but the royal you? What if someone says they're the source?
That's what I'm saying.
No, but that they are the source itself. Are they?
I mean, the teacher saying I'm the source. Well, everybody is the source. Like I said, it's all individual units of consciousness within one larger consciousness. So you are a unit of source.
So we are. So
you are pieces of the source within the big source.
So there's no central being per se.
There is. It's the big source.
So it's just one.
Everybody is a branch of the big source. So there's no difference.
So if you pray, who are we praying to?
It depends what you believe in, but technically you're supposed to pray for that one original source, because you are it's like a body. So every finger is a unit of consciousness, but it's all connected to the same body, to the same hub, the source. So everybody should be connecting back to the one source. If we all understood that, there wouldn't be any war.
That's a very good point. There's always that argument between, we have to fight, we have to have an army, right, and this sort of thing, in order to keep the peace. But I'm remembering an old film, and a Martin Scorsese film about Jesus. I can't remember what the name of it was, but Jesus in the film says, we have to break the chain of evil. And it's like, yes, there's things that we have to do just to survive. And those are necessary. But eventually, if we want to get to that next tier, we have to break that chain. And how do we do that? Because like you said, I can have my own personal journey, but collectively, how does humanity get to a place where we leave violence, and vice and bigotry and hatred behind?
It's a very complex situation right now. Like I said, it's 200,000 years of accumulated energy and momentum going in this self-destructive mode. So in certain situations, unfortunately, you may have to do certain things, step in. But in general, I would say when you allow things to unfold on their own, they will self-destruct on their own. You don't have to correct. You don't have to tell. You don't have to preach. You don't have to convert. You just go off and do what you believe in instead of telling them how wrong they are. So right now we go into a war because they have a bad regime or whatever. It's, so you are telling them how you want them to be, that you have the better answer. But if you just go off and lead your way, your life in full alignment with the source, and you show how much you're thriving, and people are happy and joyous, and there is no war where you are, then others will gravitate and will start doing what you're doing naturally. You don't have to go and beat them up and tell them this is how it is and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, again, case by case, it's a bit complex right now, but I would lead by example. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm sharing my truth, demonstrating everything that I've learned, and the hundreds and thousands of people that have been helped doing that. And the principle, the base is always, you have a direct connection to the source. Right. and you draw all the power from it directly.
All right, and we have a caller from New York. Mara, you're on the line.
Oh, hi guys. Good evening, Caroline. I want to say I watched Superhuman and really enjoyed it very much, and you're such a fascinating guest. And I have two questions, but you can answer to whichever one you want because I'm sure you are running out of time. One, I thought that is it possible that you experience so much love, and you were talking about overwhelming love from these beings because maybe you are functioning, maybe you're vibrating at a higher frequency. Because I've heard of so many people who've experienced so much trauma with extraterrestrial or just this consciousness, otherworldly consciousness, let's call it. And my second question is, when you were talking about the kids, and they're also in the movie, that get these, that cover their eyes so they can't see, and they get trained to see things and to read through these masks. What are they training for? Is this so that they can develop an extra human ability, and will that then, do you think, move humanity further? Will we have any more secrets if they can then read into our minds? And
that's a great question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So just very briefly to answer your first question, of course, it was about vibration. I was asking about love. I was focusing on love. I was vibrating, and this is where the beings showed up. So that's that. But for the math, so what happens is that a lot of children already have some intuitive abilities, and they see this training and they want to explore, to expand more. There's one category of kids who do that, and adults, by the way. But some kids have actual issues. For example, they're dyslexic or lack of concentration, lack of focus, and things like that. And they do it to kind of have, some sort of training to help them with that. And so even if that's not your focus, there seems to be very positive side effects when you do this training. You feel calmer, especially for kids. You are more self-confident. You feel more like you can do things, you did this. So it resolves a lot of visual problems, like, just seeing more clearly for some reason without even trying. If you did this training, your vision would normally improve just in general. And a lot of, like I said, dyslexic children would improve, autistic children would improve, things like that. So it's a whole range of benefits. Now, there are some people who are literally blind or literally who have very severe visual impairments, and they use this to be able to see much clearer. And you saw in the film, there's one kid, I think from Romania, if I recall, he couldn't see anything when he was born, and now he started to read again. So there's a gentleman in Italy, in Germany, who's completely blind and who was able to see again with these maps. So it's a range. The minimum that would happen is you increase your ability to be more focused, to learn. I teach it with a specific meditation technique that keeps you very, very kind of aligned in a certain way, very quiet, very focused, very precise. So at least you get those types of benefits, all the way to being able to see. Now, for the folks who are interested in the blind, because that's like life-changing. I'm not an expert on that, just training blind, but the people that I've researched, usually when somebody is born already blind, they're going to be less motivated to do this, to want to see again. But if you lost your sight through a brain damage or an accident or something like that, then those people have the highest chance to be able to see again using these techniques.
That was a great question. Thank you for the call, Ron and Omara. And, it sounds to me like this is an extension to our human abilities, not unlike, we wear glasses, right, to help us to see better. We're just using a different technology to assist ourselves. And I think that that's what's really beautiful about this. And if collectively as a species, if we were able to embrace this, and not, demonize, the pursuit of these things, perhaps we would really excel, and truly become more of like a super human race, like a sci-fi, even though you're not a big sci-fi fan, but a sci-fi, but using metaphysical science instead of physical science. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the theme and the reason why I made this film, is to show, this experiment, all of this point to the same thing. We have these abilities. What are we waiting for? Like, why? Your mind is free, So just use it. You have all these tools, all these, things that you can do right now. And so the idea is just for you to tap into your superhuman abilities. This is the website.
Everyone go to superhumanfilm.com. You can also find it on Amazon. That's where I watched it. It's really fantastic. Caroline, thank you so much for joining tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation.
That was awesome. Your questions were awesome. Thank you so much, Alan.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the great questions from the callers and the comments. And there's still more coming in. We just don't have enough time. But perhaps in the future, we can have you back and expand more on the extraterrestrial aspect of things.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Caroline. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. And you can check us out next week, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always. And a friendly reminder, Halloween night, call in. If we get 7 callers, you will all be entered in to win your KGRA merch, t-shirt, and cap. This is Alan B. Smith. I want to thank our head of operations, Eric Brigger, and our producer, Bill Skywatcher at KGRA. Until next time, live in the mystery.